Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we're continuing our series in the Tome of Heroes, a third-party module written by Kobold Press that expands upon our favorite role-playing game, Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. And today we're talking about a slight retelling of the D&D world. One of the most popular races of D&D, due in no small part to the Salvatore novels about Dritz, is the Drow, the dark elves that live in the deep places of the Forgotten Realms, and whose offshoot into the mind of Lolth has corrupted them into this darker race that lives in the cities underneath, like Menzo Berenzal. But in the Tome of Heroes, a slightly different version of the Drow is told about. Rather than being a corrupted offshoot of the elves, rather the Drow came first. They were, in fact, the older of the races, and it is questioned whether or not they're related to elves at all. They certainly have similarities to them, but there is no history that ties them together. And their underground empire was overrun by the undead Darakul, and now they found themselves in a crumbling empire. In any case, regardless of how you like to tell your story, the Drow have been rewritten into their own race, rather than a type of elf. In the regular player's handbook, you can find the Drow as a sub-race of the elves, but here they are their own race, with 3 sub-races of their own. We'll get into the details in just a moment, but before we do, I'd like to let you know, Relax Fantasy Review has memberships. For just $1 a month, you can support me here on YouTube and get a couple benefits. First, you get a little badge next to your name in the comments, letting folks know that you're a supporter. But also you get early access to my videos. I upload videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I upload them a day early for members only. If that interests you, you can click the join button just down there. It's next to the subscribe button. I'd love to see you in the comments with your badge. And if it doesn't interest you, that's completely fine. Just watching the video, liking, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff, it still really helps me out. It is the best way you can support me, to be quite honest, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for watching my content here on YouTube. So the Drow, unlike their elven brethren, begin with a +2 to their intelligence instead of their dexterity. However, intelligence is a much more niche skill, only really useful for the intelligence casters, of which there's only a few. And it's certainly nice to have a +2 to something, but intelligence is the toughest one to shoehorn in, and for a lot of folks it's a dump stat. So I give this a 7 out of 10. But they are medium-sized creatures, which is nice. It is the slightly superior of the 2 player sizes you can be, not giving you any of the small race nerfs, so I give that a 10 out of 10. And they have a standard 30-foot movement speed, which is totally fine. That's a 9 out of 10. And they have superior dark vision, giving them 120 feet of dark vision, 60 feet more than the standard kind that you get. And that's tactically fantastic, and when you don't have dark vision, you wish you did. So yeah, I say this is another 10 out of 10. Then they do have the Fey Ancestry trait, just like elves. They get advantage against charm conditions and cannot be put to sleep by magic. That's a nice feature to have, and I give it a 9 out of 10. And then they have the Mind of Steel trait. This one is different. They get advantage on mental saves, so intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, against spells specifically. This is cool. It gives them a decent defense built into their saving throws, especially when fighting casters. It'd be nice if it was just, all saves, but that might be a little too strong. I'm still giving it 10 out of 10. Advantage on 3 different kinds of saves is pretty awesome. Unfortunately, as many of the underground races get, they do have sunlight sensitivity. If you're going to rewrite the Drow, guys, at least take away that one thing about them that we all hate. So yeah, when in direct sunlight, they have disadvantage on perception checks and attack rolls. And it is possibly the biggest nerf, the biggest weakness that any race in D&D could have, taking away so much if you're not in darkness, or at least out of sunlight. I give it 1 out of 10. And then as far as their languages, they do speak Elvish, naturally, and then they can choose between common and undercommon. Being bilingual is good in any D&D game. Having to choose between common and undercommon is a little weird, but, this is the Tome of Heroes. I say 8 out of 10 for this feature. And then you have 3 sub-races based on the types of Drow that you are. First off is the Delver Drow. These are the standard kind of laborers of the Drow. They can choose a +1 to either their strength or their dexterity. So pick a physical stat there. And obviously dexterity is normally superior to strength, but if you're building a strength-based build, it's nice to have this. So the choice alone gives you an 8 out of 10 for the +1. Then they have a strange little feature called Rapport with Insects. This allows them to communicate simplistic ideas to beasts that have an intelligence of 3 or lower that are insectoid. So, spiders and beetles and other insects you can find in the monster manual, I guess. And they can communicate simple ideas back and forth, even understanding the bugs in return, which is kind of cool. I think that it would come in handy a lot of the time. I mean, when are you in dungeons or in cities or anywhere, really, you can't find a bug? It's nice, and I think it's worth an 8 out of 10. They also get specialized training. This gives them a skill and a tool proficiency of their choice. Grab Perception, it's the best skill in the game, or Stealth, or Athletics, or Persuasion, or Insight. Whatever works for you. As far as tools go, I'd go with Thieves' Tools, unless you have them already. The Disguise Kit's fine. The Herbalism Kit works. Smiths, Tinkers. There's so many to choose from. Pick your favorites. 10 out of 10. And then they get a little bit of martial excellence. This gives them proficiency in light armor and 1 martial weapon, which is kind of fun, actually. Casters don't naturally get armor, and being able to strap on some leather armor can really help them out. And a martial weapon of your choice, yeah. I mean, it's not going to do a whole lot for, rogues or for fighters or paladins or rangers or whatever. But for any caster who plays this race, I could definitely see this coming in handy. So I say 8 out of 10 for that. So that's the Delver. Pretty standard stuff. Equipment, skills, talking to bugs. Then you have the Fever Bit Drow. The Fever Bit Drow are ones that were attacked by the undead and survived, but were left kind of changed. They get a +1 to their Constitution, a solid buff for any character, and for a +1 to that, I give it a 7 out of 10. Then they get Deathly Resilience. This gives them resistance to necrotic damage, which makes sense considering what they've survived, as well as any death saving throws are made with advantage. That's solid. A damage resistance and advantage on death saves is really, really good. And I say that this feature is definitely 10 out of 10. Then they also have Iron Constitution. This gives them immunity to disease. Disease doesn't come up all that often in D&D, but being just flat immune, not just having resistance or advantage, immune, is kind of cool. If it's going to come up, it's going to feel really good. And I give that feature an 8 out of 10. And then finally, they have the near-death experience trait, like I mentioned, that kind of falls into their backstory. And this gives them advantage against any fear effects. This kind of tacks on to their advantage against charm as, 2 of the most common things you can face. And having advantage against fear is really good. I say 9 out of 10 for that. And then finally, you have a type of drow called the Purified Drow. These are ones that showed natural aptitude in magic and kind of are the higher class of the society. They get a +1 to their charisma. Arguably the best mental stat in the game. I give that an 8 out of 10 for a +1. And then they do have some innate spells. They can cast Poison Spray, which is an okay cantrip, I guess. They also can cast Suggestion and Tongues when they get spell slots appropriate for those spells once per long rest. It does use their intelligence, but they do also have that +2 to intelligence, so, whatever. And Suggestion and Tongues are fun spells. I mean, Suggestion is a very powerful social manipulation spell, and then the Tongues spell, on top of all the languages you speak, just allows you to speak to anything and anyone. So, yeah, I think that's good. I think that is definitely worth a 9 out of 10, if Suggestion for nothing else. And then you get the Born Leader trait. You get to choose 2 extra skill proficiencies from a list of 4. history, insight, performance, and persuasion. A nice list here: an intelligence, wisdom, and 2 charisma-based skills. Personally, I'd take persuasion and insight, but take whatever works for your character. And I think that 2 extra skill proficiencies from this list, 10 out of 10 for sure. Overall, this rewritten version of the Drow, I give an 8 out of 10 for all 3 different sub-races. They're very, very differently themed and have a lot of interesting abilities. Whether you're going with your standard proficiency buff, whether you're going for resistances and advantages on your saves and being more tanky and resilient, or whether you're going for a little more magical and skilled and charismatic, there's something here for everyone. I think there's enough variety in this version of the Drow almost to rival the elves in the original D&D 5e with their various styles of high elves, wood elves, Shadar Kai, and the like. I think the Drow certainly deserve this. They are one of the most popular races for a reason. And yeah, I say 8 out of 10 overall. Nothing here is overpowered, and you could easily pluck them out and use them in a standard game of D&D if your DM allows it. So have a chat with your DM if this interests you. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. Have a look for the join button down there, as well as a link that I'll leave for the Tome of Heroes. You can find it at Kobold Press. It is a great addition to your D&D games, and I highly recommend you check it out for yourself. Have a good one, my friends.